In a sense, it's a timeless issue. That there's always been leaders who are abusing since the beginning of the fall of Adam and Eve, and leaders in the nation of Israel and so on. But I think there has been over the last decade some significant overreach by leaders, both in the States and here, and cases that raise lots of questions about, are we dealing with these properly? Are we both dealing with the victims and the pastors who are involved properly, fairly and compassionately? And I'm not sure in all cases we have navigated that well. So that's why we think the book is important, to both look at the pastoral but also the practical issues.
When it comes to safeguarding practices and safeguarding structures, do you think that is vital or crucial for churches to have that in order to be healthy churches?
Yeah, I think safeguarding procedures are important, but only in as much as they're both implemented and understood, because they can just be on the shelf somewhere. That's true of safeguarding in general, but I think particularly in this area, it's what you might call many soft issues. It's not about criminality, it's not about a binary, you committed a crime, you didn't. It's about attitudes and approach, lots of little conversations that go on, lots of excluding or including people, abusing or not abusing people in conversation. So they're not easy things to legislate for. So it's important to have procedures in place, but it's also really important to have a culture that says, I want to behave in a Christ-like way towards you, if you're a member of the church or if you're a leader of the church, and I want to be accountable as a leader particularly for how I do that, and to be open to criticism on it.
In terms of pastoral care, there's also some stuff about that in the book, you say, and you also said that there's also important to care for those who have committed the abuse. What would you say to people who perhaps think, or the victims who have been, the victims of the abuse, who might think that by you caring about them, you're undermining their abuse? Yeah,
no, that's a really great question. And obviously in the real practical situations where you've got people present in churches, it's not easy to work out how you implement that. But I think what we're trying to avoid is the other end, which is to say, we deal with the victim in terms of investigating, possibly upholding their allegation, and that's good. But how are we going to care for them in an ongoing way? Because there will be broken relationships through the allegation they've made. But at the same time, not to neglect the one who has the allegations against them. They may have been upheld, they will need caring for. They may have been not upheld because they weren't true. They need caring for. And not just to say, okay, we dealt with that leader, we've got rid of them, that's fine. Or the allegation wasn't true, they can now get on with the job, that's fine. Because I think in neither cases should we neglect helping the leader deal with that and helping the victim deal with that. But really recognise it can be difficult. They might have to be at another church, but not to say, well, they've gone to another church now, let's just forget about them. But how are we going to ongoing care for them? If a leader has been abusive in this way that's not criminal, and it's not a safeguarding issue, there are real questions about, can they carry on in leadership somewhere else? And the answer is not a simple no. I think there's a lot of ifs. About what have they learned from it, how they're going to grow from it, what are they now saying about it. If they're saying, oh, well, that was just, that was a horrible experience and it wasn't true and I've been unjustly treated, that's quite different to saying, I've been humbled by this experience, I do recognise, aspects in which I didn't behave right, this is what I'm doing to try and deal with it, and I want people around me who can love me and help me to grow in that. And I don't think that disqualifies them from ever being a leader again. It might, but it might not, and all those things need thinking through.
Newspapers are reporting that the Church of England might consider lifting the seal of secrecy when people come in and confess abuse. And one of the authors commented on how they heard the stories of people who've gone through abuse. And one of the things that they were asking for was transparency.
Yes.
Is this the kind of transparency that we're talking about? Or what kind of transparency are we talking about?
Yeah, again, it's a really difficult topic. There is transparency in terms of being open to question and being open about the fact that you've been open to question and what the questions are. I'm not sure that means transparency means you open up all confidences that have been given you by a member of the church or a leader of the church. And again, it's not easy to navigate those things. But I don't think it makes sense. It's not wise to say anything any leader ever tells me or member ever tells me has to be published, both within the church and to all media, because I'm not sure that's always helpful. But I think there has to be an attitude to say, in as much as we can, we need to be open about what's going on, what's being said, what answers are being given. We as church leaders, just out of interest, have just been having discussions in our own church about confidentiality and members coming to us with particular concerns. It might be sins, it might be concerns about other people. We're not even sure it's right to be open within the eldership about those, but not because we're trying to manage information, but we're trying to encourage people to come forward. And if they think every time they come forward with something personal and private that is an issue for them, it's going to be broadcast to a large leadership group in the church and potentially across the church, and then investigated by the whole church. That's not helpful for them. So it's openness, but in the right way, and hopefully not openness that's just controlled for a few powerful people, but openness that helps everybody.
And just lastly, the book will hopefully be released by March next year.
Yep.
But in the meantime, you're also calling on people to come forward with their stories and have their say.
Yeah, we'd love people to go on to challengingleaders.uk. That's all you need to get onto the website, and we're creating a forum there where you can make comments on good leadership cultures you've experienced, bad leadership cultures, any suggestions and comments. And we're also going to run some seminars which we'll publicise to go through each of the chapters of the book.